Hello everyone and welcome to our December web tips. I'll go ahead and wait just a couple more minutes here to make sure everyone's joined, and then we'll go ahead and get started. All right, and Beth, if you want to be on mute or not, I'll know. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close a couple things down here. One being my link, so that we don't have all these pop-ups, and my email as well. All right. Okay, welcome everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started with our December web tips. My name is Justin Barr. I'll be your host today. Just a real quick introduction and logistics. If this is your first web tips, then welcome. For past web tippies, if we want to term a new term, welcome back. We're going to have a couple polls today. Everyone's going to be on mute. This is our last session for 2015, and what a year it's been. We have a kind of a slide at the end to kind of show you what's happened with CPS for 2015 and some of our customers. We do have a couple quick polls that I'll launch at certain parts of the presentation. And then for any questions, go ahead and type those into your chat window. I'll try to keep a lookout, or Beth will be watching from CPS here, and she'll let me know if there's any questions as part of the process. And we'll go ahead and get started with our web tips this year. So it is a fast-paced session. We are opening up web tips again for all Winshuttle customers. So you should have received an invite. You'll get if you've registered for the web tips session, you'll get an access to our recordings. We've actually are recording this session today, and we are going to be starting to put these sessions on our public YouTube channel. So you'll be able to access the web tips session and be able to look at our videos. We want to make sure we're sharing with the community some of our lessons learned, and we want to make sure that you're able to be successful with the platform. One thing we are asking for 2016 is that you give us your ideas or your thoughts about what you want to learn with the platform. What are you struggling with? We only know what we do on a day-to-day basis here at CPS, what some of the things we're interested in, but these web tip sessions are for our customers or Winshuttle customers, and we want to make sure you're getting the most out of them. It's an hour every month. Even on the odd number of the months, we do desktop transaction query and direct training. And then on the even number of the months, we cover form and workflow topics, things around Composer, or even administrating the Winshuttle Foundation application. So if you want, feel free to email webtips@clearprocesssolutions.com. You can email us now, and we'll keep all those requests while they're fresh in your head and you're thinking about tips and trips. Go ahead and email us, and we'll put those part of our library that we can start giving training on those topics. Without further ado, myself, a Winshuttle architect, SharePoint architect, have been using the Winshuttle platform for well over 5 years now, maybe longer. We've done a lot of processes. I've done a lot of design sessions and processes around everything from master data, customer data, all the way to onboarding and system access requests. Really any business process that you're looking to automate, reducing data entry, reducing or being able to tie multiple systems together. That's kind of what we do with this tool, and that's kind of what I love to do. So that's why I'm presenting and why I'm here today. So our topics for December, we're thinking, okay, we're closing out the new year, and what are some of the big things that I think we need to start doing from our Winshuttle application? And next thing you know, we get a bunch of customers asking about archiving. And archiving has always been a little bit painful in the past. I come way back before Winshuttle acquired the old product called ShareViz, and archiving was always a little difficult. So, Winshuttle just released in the last couple months the new version of Workflow 10.9.1 and the new version of Composer, which is 11.03. And with that is this whole archiving strategy and mechanism that we can actually utilize within our Winshuttle platform. The best thing about archiving is it keeps your system clean and it keeps your performance up. The more things that you have left open and the more forms that are just sitting out there stale that are complete that no one's really looking at, the worse your performance is going to be within the Winshuttle application. There's only, if you're sorting and filtering and doing queries against all these old processes that are out there that are stale that no one's really doing anything with, then the more Winshuttle's got to process. So if you have 10,000, 100,000 forms and workflows that are just sitting out there, Winshuttle's got to look through all that to find current stuff. So, why with the new year and the New Year's resolution, let's start archiving, and Winshuttle was nice enough to provide an unbelievable mechanism to do that. I've tested it out myself. We'll do some demos today for you, and you'll be able to see what the new archiving mechanism looks like, and it's a really fantastic process. We're also going to cover just really quickly some Composer 11.03 stuff. We do a lot of these Webtips sessions. We talk about the new products, show you them. We're not going to do too many demos, but some of the new features in 11.03 from a UI perspective, from a developer's perspective, how we're interacting with Composer has drastically changed in this version. They've made some fantastic improvements, and I'll show you just a couple of those today. And if I don't talk too long and I'm not long-winded, we'll have a Q&A session. So we want to open up some questions. This is the last session this year, so if there's anything just right before you go on break that you're really thinking about, can I ask this question, that'll be the time to do it. It'll be at the end, and I'll make sure I speed along as fast as possible. All right, so without further ado, we have our archiving process here. I'm going to go ahead and launch our first poll and give you guys a couple seconds here to respond to this poll question. And we'll say, so this question is going to be, how many Winshuttle forms and workflows do you currently have in production? So we'll go ahead and let you fill those in. If you can just respond. The poll's open now. And really looking to see how many forms and workflow you have in production, because this could affect your archival process. It just gives me a level set with the people on the phone today. Are you a customer that's been using it for 5 years and you have 20 plus forms and workflows, or do you have 1 to 5? So it looks like we're getting a good response here. Looks like about 80% have voted. So I'm going to go ahead and close that. And we'll share that as well just so everyone can see. You should see the poll results there. It looks like 22% around 0 forms, 33% 1 to 5 forms, and then 44% of us 20 plus forms in production. So good for us and good for you. That's a lot of forms and a lot of accomplishments, a lot of automated business processes there. Go ahead and hide this, and we'll jump back into our PowerPoint presentation here. So I'm just going to go ahead and select my little highlighter here, or my laser pointer, so that I can kind of have you follow along the process, and we'll get this out of the way as well. So from an archiving process, the new process that's been put in place, we kind of have this little diagram here that Winshuttle provided that kind of walks us through the process. And I'm going to start out by saying, over on the far right, the prep steps that are going to be on the next slide are extremely important before even setting up the archival. If you don't do the prep steps, then you're going to have a little bit difficult time, or your archiving may not even work. One thing we have to know when we are enabling auto archive is that the Winshuttle service, the service that runs in the background every 5 minutes, whatever you may have it set, is actually going to take a long time to run the very first time. It took an extreme long time for me when I ran it, because I have a lot of processes and a lot of demos I do, and I'm like, what's this thing doing? Well, it's actually going and updating all of your existing processes that you have on the Winshuttle application. It's going and doing those updates for you. So it's going to take a long time because all of your existing forms, but yes, at the bottom there, this works on all forms that are already completed. So you can actually, when upgrading to the new version of Winshuttle 10.9.1 of the workflow tool, and you get this archive set up, you'll actually be able to use this process you're going to see today in the demo on all your existing forms. So it's really fantastic because you're able to, it's backward compatible. It's going to work on your existing forms, and the process is really, really nice and easy to set up after you get it started. And we've kind of listed out those prep steps and those scheduling steps. So over on the left here, you have your start workflow. You start any form in workflow, and then eventually it comes to its completion. Whether it's been rejected or approved, the workflow is no longer active in the system, and that's when the archiving process is going to take place. So the very first thing you're going to see is once it's active is where there's a copy process history XML, which we'll see in the demo. And what that's doing is there's a new column in your SharePoint list. So every time you publish a form in a workflow, you're going to see an individual item in a list for your form. Well, Winshuttle created a brand new column that they're actually going to take that history that's for your process and stick it in that SharePoint column. And it's key to be there because when we archive, when we actually run this archival process, what Winshuttle is going to do is delete the item from your original list. It's going to put it in your archive list, and then it's going to delete all references from it from the Winshuttle database. So that's key, as I said before. It's the cleanup. We're making sure we're getting out of the Winshuttle database all of these forms that don't need to be there, that are slowing our process down. So it's going to delete that history from your database, but how they solve that is they're going to stick it in this column here, and we can see that happen in this step. The next step looks at the workflow type. So if it's a form workflow, they have this old terminology, FormX or DocX. Documents, DocX is just documents you route around for approval. FormX, forms you route around for approval, which probably 90% of us are doing. Some of us are using the DocX side. But what we're going to do is create a form MHT file, and that file is basically an exact copy of your form. It's the completion view. When you're creating forms, we've talked in other Webtips sessions, there's all these different types of views. There's a couple special views that Winshuttle recognizes, the originator view, or what was called the ShareViz preprocessor view. And then there's also the completed view. And that completed view is when your form and workflow is done, what do you want to display to your end users? So a lot of times we'll display the history, we'll make read-only of all the data that we have on the form. So Winshuttle is going to actually create an MHT file, which is just an image of that form, and it's going to take that image and store it in your archive list. So we'll get a good example of that when we're going through our steps here. But after Winshuttle does all of this and creates these files, it's going to mark that the is offline history column, that it's ready equals true. So we'll see a new column in our SharePoint list. It's called is offline history ready, and it's going to be true or false. So false meaning no, Winshuttle hasn't done all of this stuff that they said they're going to do before, and true means yes, we've done all of this information. We've created the history XML. We've created the copy of the form. We're ready to go ahead and start the archive process. So you see this line here. This is basically saying that we're ready to do this, but then you need to do something else. You need to schedule your archive job. So in the demo today, we're going to schedule an archive job, and you'll see that this will be true, and then once that archive job runs, then all of our archive history will set up, and it schedules and purges that process data from the Winshuttle database, and then it moves that form and workflow over to your new archive document library or SharePoint list. Over here at the bottom it says scope is the same farm, so people that are running multiple instances of Winshuttle on different web applications, if you're one of those people, keep in mind it has to stay within the same SharePoint farm. You can't go over to a new SharePoint farm for archiving or things like that. Okay. Let's talk about the steps, and we'll kind of flip in and out of my virtual machine here so you can see the steps that I kind of prepped in order to get this to work, and then we'll actually do the scheduling and the demo and some things like that. So again, the prep steps are important. Make sure that you understand that that is important with these archiving. So the first thing that Winshuttle asks us to do is create a user policy inside of the Winshuttle admin for the Winshuttle admin. So we'll go ahead and jump over to our virtual. And I've done other Webtip sessions on Winshuttle Workflow Central Admin. So Winshuttle Workflow Central Admin is our administration, our central point to administrator, the workflow tool. And you can see over on the top right, it tells us what SharePoint application or web application we're doing, who's logged in, which is the Winshuttle admin. And then you can see some of the different arguments and things that we can do. And we'll see some of the configuration values we had to set up for the archiving process. But the very first step in the prep that Winshuttle wants you to do is they want to make sure you assign this user policy to the Winshuttle admin. So we're going to go ahead and run or look at the command for our policies. And if I can remember where I clicked on that. And I've add user policy, sorry, under miscellaneous. Too many links here. Okay, so all we're going to do in this particular add user policy is you have to select your SharePoint account. You have to select your Winshuttle admin user. In my case, it's the Winshuttle admin, and you have to put it in your domain / username format. And last, you just click the continue button. You can use if you're not a workflow admin, you can use this command and it'll give that same admin rights, but essentially you're just going to go ahead and click continue and you'll get your success message over on the right. And what Winshuttle does is Winshuttle will actually take your account and give this account full control of the web application. So it's at a different level. It's not at the SharePoint site level. It's actually through Central Admin, and there's policies within Central Admin. But in order for this whole archival process to work, the Winshuttle admin needs this access and needs you to click this. So it's not something that's done automatically. You do have to go through Workflow Central. You do have to click the add user policy. But once you do that, then that's step number 1 completed, and then we'll be jumping into step number 2 here. So step number 2 from a prep standpoint is we need to install the Winshuttle history viewer. This is just a tool that we're going to use to be able to view the history of all of our archived form. So the process is actually pretty simple. You will need access to your server. So I know some people don't have access to your server, so this is something you'll have your IT department do. But every Winshuttle application gets installed in some directory. Some people call it ShareViz, some people install it under Program Files, Winshuttle Workflow. Whatever you install it, there's a bin directory inside of here. So inside of that bin directory, there is a PowerShell command that we're going to call, that I'll show you here. It's called the Deploy History Viewer. It's down at the bottom left. I took a screenshot of it when I deployed it last night. It's called Deploy History Viewer.ps1. So the Deploy History, what that's going to do is it's going to actually create your web part. So in my case, if I scroll up a little bit higher, we'll click on deploy. So here's your PowerShell script to deploy history viewer.ps1. Now from if you're the actual infrastructure guy watching this video and want to know how to do this, all you have to do is open up the SharePoint central management shell, the PowerShell here. You want to, if you're on Windows Server 2012 or if you're on Windows Server 2012 R2 or really any server, just make sure you're running this as the admin. It's important. If you don't run it as the admin, then you're actually going to get some errors. And then all we have to do with this management console once it comes up is actually navigate to this directory here. So we'll just do a quick change of directories. Paste that in there, and now we're in our bin directory, and you can see in this directory that we do have our deploy file that's just a PowerShell script. So it says deploy history _viewer.ps1. So on our PowerPoint deck here, I've actually captured the output. It just runs a couple lines. It says the WSP was added, and then you're ready to go from that perspective. Next thing we want to do after we had our server admin go ahead and run this command for us, now we have to, through Winshuttle Workflow Central Admin, we have to add a new global property for workflow process auto copy enable equals true. Really long configuration key. It's a new configuration key, but this key specifically is for setting up auto archive. So we're going to go look at that really quick inside of Winshuttle Workflow Central, and how we do that. We'll just go up to our admin commands again. We'll scroll down towards the bottom. It says configuration options. And you having, this will be the first time that you will be searching for this key. So my key has values assigned, but I'm going to say all available keys, which would be something that you would do if you don't have it assigned. And you're going to see our long key name here, workflow process auto copy enable. And it's a global value, so this is going to be across your entire Winshuttle application. So what we're going to do here is we're going to edit this key, and we're going to simply set it equal to true. It's by default is going to be false when you install the new version of Winshuttle Workflow, but we're going to just set this to true. By setting that to true, it lets Winshuttle know we want to start to use the features of auto archiving. Now, even if you're not going to use the auto archiving for all of your other forms, you just want to do it for specific forms, that's fine. You're still going to go ahead and enable this. You're just not going to set up our next step here, which we'll talk about how do we set up the archiving, how do we schedule it. So we're going to want to enable that configuration key, and that's the next part of our step here. Last thing we need to do in the prep step is we actually need to go create a SharePoint site or a list that we're going to be putting our document information in. So when we go through this archiving process, when we go to step 2 here around scheduling our forms to be archived, we need to actually have some place ready for it to be archived to. So I put this in the prep step. It's the last one. If you are using a form library or form and you want to archive forms, those are going to go to custom SharePoint lists. If you're archiving documents, those are going to be going to document libraries. So you'll see when I create my archive form that I'm archiving a form. Therefore, I'm going to be creating a SharePoint custom list to actually archive that. So let's, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and create our archive stuff, and then we'll go ahead and on the VM, we're going to start walking through how do we set up an archiving process. So in order for me to set up the archiving process, I'm going to create a quick form for us today, and we'll walk through that. So let's go ahead and switch back. Alright, so the first thing we want to do is on our system, I've created a specific SharePoint site called Archive. And that archive site is where I'm going to store all of my archive information. You can put it on the same site. You can actually create a different site collection if you want to. You can put the information, where it best meets your needs, but it's just going to be a repository for storing all of your archived forms. So in this case, we'll go ahead and add an app. The app that we're going to do, as I said, I'm creating a form, so I'm going to be using a custom list, not a document library. In this particular case here, we're going to call this Webtips December Archive, and we'll go ahead and click Create. All right, on our Composer solution, we'll go ahead and start up a new solution. This is going to be on the new version of Composer, so you're going to see some things here that look different, but we'll cover that in our next topic here. And we'll go ahead and put this under Tips. All right, so we have Webtips December. We have it stored at our site here, CPS test SPS01. We'll go ahead and click Finish. We'll add some quick information. Let's just add some request information. We'll add a couple elements here. Every form that we create today usually has about 3 fields. We'll go ahead and set the call span here to 3. And we'll make this entire section read-only so that everything's not editable. We'll change this to requester. Put this as requesters. Hopefully not get errors. Requester email. And request date. Going to ignore the errors because I know it's going to work. I'm not sure why my virtual machine is having issues, but I know this process will work, so we'll go with it. As far as elements go, we're going to add another element for the current user control, and that's right over here. And we'll set this current user control to fill in the information that's in these fields. So the current date is going to be stored in the request date. The email will be stored in our email field, and full name is going to be stored in our requester spelled incorrectly. But that's what demos are for. So the next section here, we're going to put comments and history, just so that we can see the history portion of this process. Because we want to show an example of what the archive looks like when it has a history. So I'll put a couple elements. Let's not actually use that. We'll use a text area, and then we have another element I'm going to put at the bottom, which will be our history control. Because it's a good practice, and I would say a best practice is to always include the process history on your completion view, because then when any auditor is looking at your specific site or your form, when any auditor is looking at your form, they'll be able to say, oh yeah, this is the complete history. And the last element I need to add to make sure the comments stick with our form is going to be a comment control. So we'll put this up top here, and again, you're going to see some things different as far as the search fields go, but I will talk about that next. And we're all set up from this perspective. We're just going to have a very, very simple one-step workflow so that we can see the process unfold, and we'll do a quick approval, and then we'll show the archiving. So what's also new about Composer 11.03, which we'll talk about, is the new interface for when we deploy forms. What I like best about it is every time I deployed a form, I had to go over to SharePoint and see where SharePoint put it. Now we got a new little pop-up that says, hey, do you want to launch the form that you just created? So I don't have to navigate or figure out where it's at. I can just go ahead and pop up my form. So in this form, we're going to just say test archive. It'll be a very quick form here. And I'm going to hit save and route. This is going to show up on my task list as that step. And then before we approve this, so we can see our Webtips December is sitting on my task list here. Before we approve it, I'm going to show you some of these nice values here that I was talking about in the prep step of what Winshuttle added. So I'm going to modify my default list, and we're going to see a couple new fields here. So is offline history ready is one of our actual columns, and our what's our other column name is that may be it. Okay, we'll keep that one there. Okay, so we'll hit OK here. All right, so we should see a no in this column because it's not ready. It's not ready to be archived because we don't have the process is still running. So there's still a task out there. So this particular process is not ready to be archived. So let's look at what happens when we do complete this task. So we'll just come down here and say I approve. Again, this is all being stored in our comments down here, so that when we archive our form, we'll have a complete history. Okay, so now we have our approval done, and we're going to go look at our list again and see what's the issue, or what's the status. So right now, not ready. We're complete, but we need to actually run our process here. So we have a scheduled task in the background that's going to run through and see if there's any completed workflows. So while that's running and going to be setting this information, let's see how we actually schedule the archival process. So as we said in our initial workflow, Winshuttle will mark these as complete or that the history is ready, but you still have to actually schedule it. So step 2 of our PowerPoint deck was around scheduling of these processes. So how do we schedule it? What do we do? We're going to go under our Winshuttle Workflow Central site, and we're going to click on Manage Background Jobs. Once we're on the Manage Background Jobs, sorry, wrong link. We're going to Manage Background Jobs. Sorry, click on our scheduler here. So Administration Scheduler. When we're on our scheduler, on the top right, it says Move Archive Data. So if I click on this link, it's going to ask us, what's your source site, what's your source list. So I want to set this up on our tips site, and the source list is going to be our Webtips December. You have a lot of different criteria that you can actually set this up for. So you can say data older than, and then a certain number. You can say in a specific item ID, or you can do a date range. So you can say within this date, go ahead and archive this information. So if you want to set this up and have it scheduled and to run on a schedule, run every 6 months, run every year, you can set up a date range. In my case, I want to say 0, just so that I get the latest, get everything. So if you specify 0, it tells you, 0 means everything, versus I want stuff that's older than 365 days. So you can specify your criteria up top here. And this little checkbox here, if you do promote fields, which we usually always do in our forms because we want to expose that data so that people can do reporting on it, if you do promote your fields, this little checkbox here will say, yeah, go ahead and take those fields that I promoted and put those in my archive list as well. So I have that information. So that's that little checkbox. And then you have your option to move the data now or on a schedule. So in this case, I'm just going to move it now, and then now I need to select my destination information. From the destination information, I'm going to choose my archive, which is the archive SharePoint site, and then we created a Webtips December archive. All we have to do is click Save, and now we have something sitting in our queue ready to go. So we can see that this was scheduled This is going to run on the Winshuttle timer service, so we can keep an eye on that. Let's go take a look at our history available. I want to see here that we are set up as yes. I want to see if I can find this other column because I know it's supposed to be here. Title, where it is, Winshuttle archived history. So there's the column we want. So Winshuttle went ahead and created this column here, and this column is all of our history information being stored in this SharePoint column. So now that Winshuttle has this information, it's taken a picture of our form. Now we're marked as ready to go. Now it would just sit here if we didn't schedule that job. But since we scheduled that job to move this information, I'm going to go ahead and run the task scheduler again. What we're going to see is this item is going to disappear. So the archiving process, as I stated, is around cleaning up your existing Winshuttle form library. You know, what is a performance degradation for Winshuttle? Well, having 10,000 forms sitting in a single document library that has all of this data in it takes a long time for Winshuttle to process through it. So by having a schedule and saying anything older than six months or 30 days, go ahead and archive it. This process will kind of go through doing that for us. So we'll keep on refreshing here and wait for our little task scheduler to run. It's just part of all of the other things that Winshuttle is doing. And then you can also take a look at your scheduler here. So your scheduler is going to show you, you know, when it's executed. Currently, last runs never. So it's still processing through that request. You can see other archive stuff. So you can see all the kind of the testing I did and playing around with this tool. That you can see some of the successes, and it tells you too, which is nice, how many items were actually moved to that destination. So it has a number of items moved. You know, right here, I was able to successfully move one item, and then number of items failed. So you get all that information just looking at your task scheduler. All right, so now I've refreshed the screen and I see my scheduled job is now done. So that means Winshuttle's run it. So I'm on my Webtips SharePoint list. I'll go ahead and refresh, and lo and behold, everything is gone. So where did it go? Well, we told it to go to the archive SharePoint site. So I'm going to click on archive, and we have a new list over here called Webtips December archive. And now we have our actual Webtips December form here. So how do we look at the form, and what are some of the cool things that we've done in our prep steps that we can actually look at the history? So the first thing in the PowerPoint deck it'll show you is by clicking on this 3 ellipsis. If you're on SharePoint 2013, you're going to get a new option here called Winshuttle History Archive, left right parenthesis. Winshuttle History Archive, when we installed that PowerShell script, part of the prep step, we have this new history archive. And what I want to show you is that's actually a site feature. So if you click on Site Settings and Manage Site Features, down here at the bottom, you're going to see some of Winshuttle's actual history and some of their other features they have. But the one that we're working on is called the Winshuttle History Viewer. So what I had to do is activate this history viewer so that link shows up on my site. So I should probably put that in the number in the prep steps for you. So I'll make sure I update the PowerPoint deck before I send this out. But that is a key. In order for the history to show up, you do have to activate that particular feature for your site. And again, that's under Site Actions, Site Settings here, Manage Site Features, and then you just scroll down to the bottom to the Winshuttle History Viewer. Once you do have that feature activated, that's when that link will appear with these 3 radio buttons here. So if I click on this archive link, with a Winshuttle History Archive, now I can actually see the history information. Now keep in mind this is deleted from my Winshuttle database. So no longer is it in my database, but it's because of that XML column that has that history. Winshuttle has that link that now says, okay, we can actually display what the history was. So we can see when it was started, when it was approved. So we see approval 3 here, the dates, the time, what the status was, and then any comments. So I approved it or test archive. So that's one way of looking at your history. But most people, they want to actually look at the underlying form and what was some of the data filled out on it. So how do we get to that? We click on the ellipsis and click View Item. We'll see the same information from the form and from the archive history that I just talked about. But what we'll see at the bottom is this attachment. This attachment, when clicking on it, we'll save it and we'll open it, is an exact copy of your form. So we had our request information up top here. It had my email and some of the text box information. It had our history down here at the bottom. So this shows you that the form and what you have for the form, we're just going to take that copy of that completion view or your default view. There was a Webtips session we did on the special views and which one takes precedence. But this particular view here is our completion view or our default view, and we're able to see all the history. That's why I like to include the history control on my completion view so you can see that information. So all that's stored in a SharePoint list for you. The archive information is vital. Being able to pull up that form and see what was approved for a system access request, who approved this master data to get into SAP, who onboarded this employee. Everything that we automate from a Winshuttle perspective, will be stored, part of this history, part of the archive, and it's not too bad to set up. So hopefully that explained all of the steps. Looking back at our steps here, we went through our prep, we went through the actual scheduling of the process through Winshuttle Workflow Central Admin, and then we reviewed the data. I had some screenshots here on how to click on the archive versus the view item. So hopefully you guys got some knowledge out of that and some understanding. It is actually a pretty simple process to set up, and we do have our reference links here that'll be part of the deck so that you can look at that information and click on some of the links that I looked at when setting up mine. All right. Our next topic here is going to be around Composer 1103. Again, I'm not going to get into a real detailed explanation of this, but I just want to show some of the things that I was kind of excited about. That's where I put my little smiley face with a thumbs up to the Winshuttle icon. Hey, good job, Winshuttle. These features from a UI perspective, from what we do every day with deploying form, launching forms, being able to look for fields, is this entire UI interface for Composer 1103 will increase our developers' productivity and my productivity. So, the big thing here is this launch form. I showed you this earlier. When you deploy a solution, now you get a couple options. You can launch the form. When you click that button, you're taken right to the form. You don't have to go navigate to the SharePoint site and then click the button to launch the form. Winshuttle, was smart enough to say, hey, if they're deploying the form, they're probably going to want to launch it. If they don't want to launch it, we're just going to have them click the OK button, which we had to do before. So now you have a cool little option here to launch your form, and you'll be opened up to your form site. The other cool option is the show form URL. A lot of people are incorrectly referencing your form URLs on other sites. So if you are one of the people that say, I'm going to go to Winshuttle and there's this unique GUID that I see in the URL, I'm going to copy this and paste it, that's not the right way to actually get the form URL, because you're going to be on that version of the form. So let me show you what I mean by that so that everyone's on the same page. If I go back to our tips and tricks portal here and I choose December, we'll go up Webtips December. The URL you see at the top here has a hard-coded string that is for this specific version of the form and of the workflow. So you'll see there's a lot of information in here that is saying, hey, this is the version of the form that I want you to use and the version of the workflow. So Winshuttle uses that. If you were to copy this URL and make a brand new link somewhere, you would be referencing that specific version of the form and workflow. What we know with Composer is that, or with forms and workflows are that version of the URL or that version of the form is never the same. We're always making updates. So how do we correctly identify that? With our deploy option here, you're going to get this option to show the form. So we have the form URL, and you can see right here it says new_form.shareviz, and then it has type equals, and then it has the type. %20 is a space. So if you have spaces in your name, you're going to see that. But this is the correct URL to use. What this URL tells Winshuttle is, hey, I need to launch this form called Webtips December. Give me the latest version. Versus looking at the URL that we have here that has everything hard-coded. You can see it's called fill out form shareviz ASPX. Fill out form is going to the exact form. This URL that we're looking at here is saying, hey, before you go to the form, let's launch the newest version of the form. So that's a cool little feature and a little trick for you to get the right version, so that when you're putting those on your HR portal or some other portal, and then you're putting a link to your form, you're putting the right link to your form. Next, we're just going to look at the rules inspector and manager and the search for fields and some email PDFs, and we'll end it with some Q&A. I do have one more poll here. Let me go ahead and launch that so that we can get some quick feedback. Go ahead and launch. This is a quick one on archiving and do you have an archive process? You know, this is something related to our last session here, but you know, this will tell me, you know, are you looking at it? You know, is it something you're thinking about? Do you want to, you know, use this archiving, and that's going to be, you know, you're going to have to upgrade to the latest version of the workflow solution in order to do that. Looks like we're getting our votes coming in now. There's about 57%, 64. All right, we'll go ahead and close this poll down, and we'll share the results. 33%, that's across the board. So 33% say yes, 33% said no, but I've been thinking about it. And 33%, I didn't know we can do this. So yeah, we split the board there. That's pretty phenomenal. So good. I'm glad that you know, you were able to see what you can do with the archiving process. And if you do have an archiving process, hopefully this will be a little bit easier for you. All right, we'll go ahead and hide this. Okay. All right, last but not least, we're going to jump into Composer and just show you the rules inspector, the search fields, and end on that. Okay, really quick here, rules inspector. We all deal with rules on a day-to-day basis, and sometimes they've been extremely painful. So first and foremost, edit rules. You see this cool little pop-up window that pops up that is a lot different than what we saw before with, you know, being in the center of the screen. So this is called the rules inspector, and you know, as you can imagine, you know, the add new rules is going to look similar to what you've seen before. Now, what's drastically different in this version is group and elements displayed, and oddly enough, that's the first time I clicked on formatting, so it's even telling you group and elements display options have been moved. You know, Winshuttle's letting us know that yes, that's no longer here. So you're not going to see under formatting anymore how to show or hide elements. If you're looking here to hide controls, your answer is you're not going to be able to see it. This formatting is specifically for bolding, italicized, things like that. If you want to show and hide fields, it's now called an action. And so we're going to go ahead and click on that action, and we're going to click add like we would before. But what you're going to see is in our drop-down menu here, there's two new things: change field property and change group property. So the change field property will specifically say, let's look at our requester field, and I want to show it or I want to hide it. Maybe I want to enable it or disable it. Maybe I want it required, and maybe I don't want it required. So each one of these rules, you have one rule. You can see the radio buttons. It's one rule per action here. But you can show or hide information and fields, specific fields. Now you can see that this is not the group. So if you were wanting to hide the entire group, very similar, except for we're just going to change our option to change group display. And now with the change group display, now we get options around a group. So we're showing the group, we're hiding the group, we're expanding or collapsing, enabling or disabling. And then you'll also notice you have to still choose, like you did before, group, a field within that group. So if I just choose our hide option here and hit OK, you're going to see over on the right side what the rules inspector looks like. So no longer do I have to say, man, what was that rule? What was the condition I put on there? Let me edit the rule. Let me go take a look at it. That was very painful, and we had to look through every single rule on a field to figure out what exactly was happening. Now we have this rules inspector that we can see right out of the gate. There's no conditions, and the action is to hide the requester. So that's really new and really exciting from that perspective that we can actually get to rules. And the last thing here I wanted to show was in the workflow option. A lot of people have been asking for it. It's finally here. I have not got to test it because I'm in my virtual environment and I don't have email set up. But the option is now here finally that we can email forms as PDFs. So when you want to send it to a requester for approval, we just had JPEG, PNG, now we have PDF. You say include item, and then now you're all set up, and now your form will be converted into a PDF so that the person approving it can look at it as a PDF. Last but not least, on searching fields, there's this new thing over here for form data and searching. So for a search perspective, when we're looking at our form data, before we had like say 500 fields on our form, and I know I want to get to this field. What did I have to do? I had to scroll down through all 100, 200 fields just to get to the bottom of my screen to put a rule on it. Now with this search mechanism, you can actually type in requester, and now we get the requester's email, and we can modify or change rules, copy rules, anything from here. So the search functionality, greatly appreciated, because searching through all those fields, when I know my field's called F underscore PO underscore number, was always painful to find in a list of 500 fields. All right, that is my big thumbs up to Winshuttle and my big thanks, and that closes out our year. So is there any questions? Let's go ahead and look quickly at our GoToMeeting and see if there's any questions that you had, anything in the chat window. Looks like we're clear. No questions?
Seen it.
Yeah. Okay. So if anybody has any questions, go ahead and feel free to start typing them. But while you're typing them and I'm looking over the questions, I'll go ahead and turn this over to Beth to talk about our year.
Hey everybody, just wanted to take this opportunity, given this is our last Webtips session, to thank all of you. You know, we are very proud of our support and delivery team and sort of the way we work together to implement various solutions using both the scripting and mass data maintenance tools and especially the form and workflow. So just wanted to take an opportunity, you know, everyone's on different paths and different internal priorities, to think about how you want to use your investment in Winshuttle to automate process and to gain returns for your organization. So quickly, I wanted to show you some of the things that we've been working on this year and processes that have really impacted the clients we work with. You know, because of all this great success and what the tool can do for people, you know, we're blessed to say we've tripled our delivery and support team, and we're just so proud of the work we're doing together. So as you can see, a lot of the processes we're working on cross all segments of the organization. They interface with SAP and many other systems, and we've also gotten training that we can offer to you. Of course, solution care, which, you know, by the way, these topics that Justin covered today are very much a product of what we're seeing across various clients with questions, and we plan to continue to leverage what we're finding out as we work with you to make sure that these tips and tricks sessions are pertinent to what's going out in the field. So I'm not going to read everything for you, but we're just so excited about the work we've done. Justin, I'm actually seeing there are a few questions in the chat window about archival. Do you want to circle back around and take a look at those? Justin, I think you might be on mute.
I couldn't find I could not find the unmute button. There's so many buttons. I'm like, where did the unmute go? All right. I wasn't talking though, which is good. All right. Let's go ahead and answer some of these questions. How will the new auto archive impact the current archive process that is done within the command line and schedule? Will we need new custom lists, or will we be able to add new archive forms to the same list? Very good question, Sharon. So I haven't tested it. You know, my understanding is the old archiving mechanisms are really just going to go away because this is the new way of doing archiving. So it's a better way, it's a more efficient way, and it actually provides, you know, some level of with the Winshuttle history viewer and what we enabled. You know, I think it's a pretty quick way of doing things. I haven't tested on an existing process. My guess, if I was a betting person, which I am because everyone knows I play poker, I would say it's going to work just fine. Because you saw in the scheduler, it says there's a checkbox that says create columns. So Winshuttle took the existing methodology that they had when they were moving over columns, moving over items into this archiving. They were creating images. They were pulling that over. They were putting this history. They just made it better. So if I was a betting man, I would say yes, it's going to work just fine. But that's what test environments are for, right? So we'll give that a test. Does the archive tool work in a standard SharePoint document library? If it's a form and workflow, it's going to go to a custom list. If it's a document workflow, it's going to go to a document library. So you want to make sure you keep those in line, that a form goes to a custom list, and a document workflow goes to a document library. Next question that came in was, when is the best place to go to learn how to use Composer from the beginning? That's a really good question. CPS, you know, has an offering for training. That's part of our solution care package, that we do quick training sessions on focused items. Overall, if you want a 1-week training class, we do offer packages around that. You can email sales@clearprocesssolutions.com for any information around training packages that we offer. If you are wanting to be a solution care customer and are interested in the offering, we have that on our next slide. You can email solutioncare@clearprocesssolutions.com, and we'll get those emails as well. Other than that, you know, we are trying to build some of these best tips and tricks, and we create our own training material at CPS here. So we use the tool every day, so we want to make sure that we're introducing the latest and greatest. But Winshuttle, as you can see with the interface, They're always making changes, so it's really hard to keep up to date. The best place to go is where you're at right now, is the Webtips session. Next question is, could you please send a demo document? A demo document.
I typed in this answer just for everybody's, I think Justin said at the beginning, this presentation we will put out on YouTube on our channel to make sure you can view it. We also have, if we have you onboarded to our portal for Solution Care, and everyone is, it's fair game to get 5 free hours of that if you're not already a customer. The knowledge base there not only houses the previous Webtips recordings, but it also has, let's say we did a session on how to build a feature in a script. There would also be the example scripts that were used and all the collateral around that. So this is just sort of showing what our Solution Care offering is and how it kind of complements what you get with your Winshuttle support and maintenance. So the Winshuttle support and maintenance is what allows you to take advantage of the amazing upgrade that introduced these new features. But what we do is kind of surround it with, you know, best practices, short duration training, things that you might need to work through to understand if Winshuttle could support a scoping issue or some sort of priority that you're trying to satisfy within your organization, staff augmentation for scripting, sort of those quick updates you want to do to your solutions. And again, it also can help you work through what your plan is for performing an upgrade and kind of coaching you on what testing should be done. So at the bottom there is Solution Care at clearprocesssolutions.com. If you're not already in our portal, would love to set you up.
Yep. 5 free hours, and like we said, you know, those hours can be used for whatever you need. If you're contemplating the upgrade and you get those 5 free hours, will help you through, you know, what to understand about the upgrade. We have a ticketing portal and it's staffed accordingly. And lastly, because we don't want to go over our time, is we just want to show our upcoming events. You know, join us in Las Vegas. So we are going to be out at Winshuttle's yearly annual conference for it's called WUG. It's in Las Vegas this year. It's February 17th through the 19th. We are a gold sponsor part of this event, so CPS is heavily committed to Winshuttle, as you can see with our Webtips sessions, our Solution Care offering, and all the project work that we've done this year. We're heavily focused on being a partner of Winshuttle, and we'll be out there in Vegas and looking forward to seeing you guys in person versus talking to a computer monitor.
Yeah, live on stage. Justin will be there.
Live on stage.
You know, we also had sent out an email that gave you the link to register for this series. There was another link to register for the series that covers Transaction Query, Direct, Runner, Central, you know, some of those mass data maintenance tools. If you haven't signed up for that, please do. That session will be held on January 21st and then every other month after that.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you everyone for joining and your questions, and a great year, and have a happy holidays, and we'll be looking forward to seeing you in the first of the year at our next Webtips session.
Thank you. Thanks, Justin.
Yep. Bye.